welcome to Canuck of the Dead. We are continuing on with our Halloween franchise breakdown. Without further ado, Benner, welcome back.
Hey, what's going on? It's the summertime. That's why I got my shades on. I'll take those off for this podcast. But yeah, it's been a minute, man. How are you? How you doing, Rob?
Yes, I was thinking I should go get my Black Fawn sunglasses too. You know,
dude, these are a rare commodity. We're out now, so
really?
getting bugged to get new ones made. So we'll see what we can do.
They remind me so much of those Days of Thunder sunglasses that came out back in the day when that movie came out.
That's a total coincidence, Rob. I have no idea. That's so weird that they look like that.
And that's where we'll leave it. All right. But today we are here to talk about Halloween 3, the redheaded stepchild of the movie franchise.
Yeah, totally.
It's cool because I do have a redheaded stepchild and I love her the most. So this is exactly like that.
Well, does that mean I got to be careful what I say now about this film?
No, not at all. This is my opinion on this one. I love this film. So it's going to be fun chatting about it.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
But it wasn't always that way. It's developed a following. But when this thing came out.
Yeah, so I don't know if we should lead the show with this, but so I have no problem admitting this. I've never seen this movie until recently for this particular podcast. No particular reason other than when I was growing up, like people were like, oh no, don't get that one, that's the one that doesn't have Michael Myers in it, right? So we always skipped it, so I never watched it, and I've always meant to go back and watch it, but I just never had the time, and blah 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 blah. So this was a first timer for me. It's just one of those flicks. I don't know if you have those, Rob. You've got there's a like a small list of flicks that you've never seen that you know in your heart and in your mind you should watch those movies to complete your training. And you never get around to it. So this was one for me. So I'm glad that I knew this day was coming because we had talked about how we were going to set up and what timelines we were going to do. So it was really a cool experience for sure. So I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Mine was The Usual Suspects. I still haven't seen it, and I know I need to see it. It's one of those films.
You got to watch that movie.
Right? See?
Yeah.
Well, let's get everybody up to speed on Halloween 3 in case you haven't seen it. Here is the trailer.
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, the night no one comes home.
You don't really know much about Halloween. Halloween, the barriers will be down between the real and the unreal. And the dead might be looking in. The last great one took place 3,000 years ago when the hills ran red.
Halloween, the children. You happen to know anything about this Cochran?
All I can tell you, mister, is watch out. He's watching you, friend, I guarantee you that.
Trick or treat, trick or treat.
Hey, Mr. Cochran, just what is the final process?
Fellas, I was just kidding.
Witchcraft. To us, it was a way of controlling our environment.
Hey!
Where are they taking her?
They're taking her to the factory.
I want a mask. Can I have a mask?
Just what I had in mind for you, little buddy. Why, Cochran? Why? Do I need a reason?
I've got nothing here to indicate there was ever a body at all.
Operator, this is an emergency.
I do love a good joke, and this is the best ever. A joke on the children. I'm glad you'll be able to watch it.
You've got to believe me.
They're going to kill us. All of us.
Stop it!
The world's going to change tonight, Doctor. Happy Halloween.
Stop it!
Season of the Witch, the night no one comes home.
There we go. I had to throw the teaser trailer in there at the beginning.
Totally. Yeah. Awesome. I love the old school trailers, man. Love them.
Oh, and that was one of the teasers that used to get me back in the day too. I scared the crap out of me when those eyes popped out.
I was not scared of that trailer.
No,
I don't think I ever saw it as a kid. Like, this was this is the movie that sort of like it didn't get put into my path, right? Like, I mean, I remember the artwork, I remember seeing that. I always was curious about the film, but yeah, I just never got around to watching it, right? So it's yeah, I don't have the same connection to it that a lot of other people do that grew up and do remember watching this movie around, especially around Halloween. So, but yeah. Anyway, it's yeah, cool trailers.
I'm like you though. I did not see it when I was young because again, I saw the teaser.
Yeah.
And then I was always told, that's the one without Michael. Don't watch that. Don't watch that. But about mid 90s, I think it was, I finally went and watched it. And I've slowly loved it more and more every time.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's get into it. Man,
yeah.
Let's talk. Where do you want to start?
Well, what's your thoughts on it containing no Michael Myers? Let's just get the elephant out of the room.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, the concept of this film is actually pretty cool. Like, as far as where it sits in the Halloween, in the franchise, obviously, John Carpenter had an idea that the Halloween movies were going to be almost like an anthology series of films, and every year a new film would come out, with Halloween 1 being the first one. Again, like, I'm not quite sure. Obviously they made Halloween 2. I feel that this film would be more successful if Halloween 2 didn't exist.
Yes.
And that this was just the second entry into sort of this idea that he had for an anthology series. It's very obviously not directed by John Carpenter, but it's very John Carpenter-esque. I don't know the what happened on set or whatever, but you have the feeling that the director of this film, he's obviously, I can't remember his name just off the top of my head, Tommy Lee Wallace, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't help but think either that he really, really wanted to pay tribute to John Carpenter, really keep that same vibe from the first two Halloween films, or if potentially John Carpenter was like, poking his head around the corner and telling people what to do, but I'm not quite sure. So pure speculation there on my part, but obviously John Carpenter still does the music for this. He still produced the film with Deborah Hill. So obviously, it's got that same vibe. There's a lot of the opening shots and a lot of the shots in the town that I really, really loved. So it's shot in a really cool way. The story, I mean, we'll get to the story, but I think the plot is a little shaky. But it's definitely got, it does still have that sort of old school 80s vibe to the film. And what I mean by that is just how they made movies back then. You can tell where the budget runs out. You can tell where they were limited to what they could do. I'm just surprised, like the film itself. Like, I almost wish it was called something different. I kind of wish it had come out right after or followed in sequence after Halloween 1. This movie would have benefited from that. But again, had they done that, maybe you don't get any more Michael Myers. Maybe there is only one Halloween movie and there isn't the franchise that we've come to know and love, right?
Exactly. But you're right about the 80s, because like Tom Atkins is in it.
Yeah.
And he is iconic for 80s horror.
Yeah, and just the just the aesthetic, the whole what they could do with special effects, they were limited to. So you but again, having said that, also relying, because they didn't have CGI and all that stuff, heavily relying on practical effects, which of course are always better, as we know. So there's a lot of that in this movie too, which is pretty cool. So props.
Yeah. I love the idea that they were stepping away from. I like John Carpenter's original concept of a new movie every year that has nothing to do with anything else. And it's just a Halloween story. And this one was a great start, where they're talking about Stonehenge and the mysticism and robots.
Yeah, like, I mean, so that's my one kind of gripe with it. Well, I'll tell you, like, a couple of things I really, really did like about the film is that when they go into the town and they're staying at the motel, and you kind of see like there's this motel and it's very kind of picturesque. It's like white with pink accents and that sort of stuff. And then you see this kind of like ominous factory that's kind of sitting in behind, reminding me a lot of like Tim Burton films, which is kind of cool, right? So just with how they shot it and how they set it up. I will say this: I watched of course, I've got the Halloween box set from Scream Factory. I was trying to get this film on 4K because I hadn't seen it before. I have got the first two Halloween films on 4K, which were just re-released by Scream Factory. So I wanted to get Halloween 3, I just couldn't get it in time. But even the 4K transfer on the Blu-ray is fantastic. It looks excellent. Really, really great job in restoration, of course. Just always like to point that out as well. And Scream Factory known for that stuff. A job well done for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's colorful. It's an interesting concept. I kind of know what they were trying to do with it, but where I kind of get bogged down on this is like whether or not it's supposed to be one. I think it kind of feels like it should be called Season of the Warlock, personally, not Season of the Witch, but but you know, whatever. But also as well, like the inclusion of robots and like there seems to be like too many ideas going in on this movie, and the scope of the film, of course, is immense, just due to the fact that it's got they're hitting all of these cities across the states, as this sort of like, you know, national or global event that's going to happen where all these kids are going to die. But I don't know, like it seems it's almost like it's bitten off a little bit too much than it can chew. And I wish they had kind of maybe scaled it back a little bit. I think it would have been more successful in what they were trying to do with it.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, if it had been released this as number 2 and then taken with what it is right now, I think it would have done really well. I don't know if it would have the cult following it does now, because of the fact that it was hated for so long and people are now going, wait, it's not that bad. You know, I think it's getting more liked than it probably would have in an original run with a good title and no feedback or no.
Yeah. And sorry, and I should have said this too, like, it's not a bad movie. And had it been called something completely different as well, like so again, we were talking about maybe it being following the first Halloween film and sort of setting up that anthology. So a couple things with that. One is that, yes, maybe we don't get Halloween 4, which would be horrible, but we wouldn't have gotten 5 or 6 either. So, you know, and if you're curious as to why we're laughing about that, go and check out the previous episodes in this series, because me and Rob really get into those films. Yeah. But ultimately, like, you know, it's a little bit of a shame because maybe we would get different stories for Halloween, an entry of Halloween 3 and 4 and 5, and completely different stories in this kind of anthology series, which would have been interesting to see if that would have taken off. I think like if there was any decade for that to be successful, it would have been the 80s. So that would be interesting. However, even if you took this film and just called it something else, so removed it completely from the Halloween franchise and just called it maybe Season of the Witch, I think it would have been way more accessible. I think it would have gotten that cult following a lot sooner than it did. It did remind me of like, I don't know, this happens all the time today, but in movies today, but it did feel kind of like, hey, this is a script we have and we could repurpose it and make it into Halloween 3, right? There's obviously a couple of references to the first film, or the first couple of films. Obviously, Halloween, the movie, is shown. There's a couple of clips in the film. That's kind of how John Carpenter sort of sneaks in some of the original music as well into the scene where he's showing them the movie. He turns on the TV and the Halloween 1 is playing. Yeah. And so some of the music from that film is now in this film, right? Which is also, if you really think about it, kind of meta. Before meta was even a thing.
Right. You know? Because this movie is taking place in a world where Halloween is a movie.
Right. And you wonder if they would have expanded that in really, really cool ways going forward in future installments of whatever those stories would be, right? But and also the other cool thing is that Jamie Lee Curtis is in this movie. She is the person who announces the curfew in the town. and she's also the phone operator. So you never see her, but you do hear her, and it's clearly Jamie Lee Curtis. So that's kind of a cool shout out. So they really tried to do this, right? Like, obviously John Carpenter's still involved. He wanted to see this through. He kind of wanted to have some input on it. Obviously, he wanted this to be successful. And then it's unfortunate that it kind of did as bad as it did. Box office wise, it still did well. It was still a profitable movie. I think it was made for about $2.5-3 million, and it made about 14-15 million at the box office. So it still made cash, but not as much cash as Michael Myers made. So, therefore, as is always always the case in Hollywood, you follow the money, and they resorted back. But that's good, because I really, 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 really like Halloween 4. So, yeah, it's a mixed bag on this one for sure.
Exactly. I know it's interesting. I call this one the redheaded stepchild. Tommy Lee Wallace, the robot henchman, he originally wanted to cast all redheaded people to be those henchmen.
Really? Oh, Jesus.
I don't know how it got shot down or why, but I think that would have been really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Well, I mean, the town is supposed to be this Irish town, right? So maybe it was too on the nose. I don't know. Like my thought on this is like the robot component is a little, like, to me, it's a little out of place. Like, I feel like the people working for him should be witches and should be like demonic somehow. Or, I mean, obviously you don't want to do creatures because of it blow up the budget, but just something else like lizard people, or I don't know, whatever. Like, I just feel like it should be more monster based. That's the vibe I always get. You kind of know right off the hop that it's going to be androids and robots and stuff. So it just feels like it's like two conflicting ideas into one thing, where it doesn't quite, I don't think it quite gels as much as they had hoped it would, probably on paper, right?
I think it did then, because literally, and this is again my opinion, I think they were trying to show the connection between technology, like advanced technology, and mysticism. That's why you have the opening. It's not a pumpkin anymore. It's a computer generated pumpkin. They're showing the technology that is there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they were going for, because they're robots. Because I agree with you. A more natural feel would have been lizard people in robes and stuff like that. But
yeah, that's true. I mean, I do. I mean, the other thing too is you have the kind of it's not like there's just the Stonehenge plot point, kind of roped in here, which is like, I don't know. It's just so funny because there's a mention at the bar. I think when Tom Atkins is at the bar, and they're saying, oh, like this one of the stones from Stonehenge has gone missing, and they don't know where it is. So I don't know. I just feel like I feel like they should have maybe just they should have just skimmed this movie down to a little bit more of like evil small town, what's going on there, nobody comes back from it, and that sort of thing, because they do set up a couple things. My other criticism of the movie is that and where I think it kind of goes wrong, just in the Halloween franchise itself, is that I do feel that like this shouldn't be Tom Atkins' movie, right? I really do feel like it's more based around Ellie Grimbridge, right? So who is the lead actress, who I think at the time was about 23. She was obviously taking up the mantle from Jamie Lee Curtis. So, but she's excellent in this movie. Like, she's pretty good, and that's the plot of this movie. That her dad was ran a toy store, or I can't remember if it's a toy store, but I think it's just a general store. But and that's the opening sequence of the film. That's why she is sort of looking for her father. That's why they go to the town, et cetera, et cetera. So I do feel like there's a little bit of a miscalculation here, where I think the movie should have revolved around her as opposed to Tom Atkins. But I mean, Tom Atkins also has one of my favorite lines, which is in the film, which I chuckled when I watched it. It's getting late and I could use a drink. It's just like, it's like such a cowboy line, right? But that's the one thing I think I was a little disappointed when I watched it. I really did feel that this was Ellie's movie, and it could have been Ellie's movie. And they just went the other direction, right? So
one of the other things I felt they could have done is what American Horror Story did. I think this would have been perfect in a Halloween anthology franchise, is to bring back these same actors. They did that with Nancy Keys. She's in here. She played Annie in Halloween, but she's in here.
Right.
But if they had had Jamie Lee Curtis and all the other people, Donald Pleasance even would have been a good character in here, and then just do different stories, I think that would have made a more connective series than what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's because they did Halloween 2. And I think that sort of it you're sort of I don't think they could have done that because they had made 2 Halloween movies. I think you make one, I think you can get away with casting Donald Pleasance. Like Donald Pleasance could have played just even a minor role. Like he could have played like the motel owner, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Who is like very, very nice and fatherly, but like also a bit creepy. What's going on here? So I think they kind of like they worked themselves into a corner and they weren't quite sure how to get out of it. This was the attempt. And of course, middling results when it was released. I do want to actually just say this because I thought you touched on it beforehand. So the New York Times reviewed this movie when it came out, and they said that it has Halloween. This is a quote. So, quote, Halloween 3 manages the not easy feat of being anti-children, anti-capitalism, anti-television, and anti-Irish all at the same time. So I don't know. Like, I mean, I think that's, I think the scope of the film, I think it tries to be this big sort of overarching thing. There's plot points about Stonehenge and different cities. Like I chuckled as well because when I watched all the different, like there's it's like there's like I think there's Dayton, Ohio, there's Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's the same city that they just filmed. They just filmed around the corner, right? So, but yeah, I mean, all in all, I think it's a cool movie to throw on Halloween. I'd say for sure. Gets you in the Halloween spirit. And I do love the masks. Like the masks are cool, right? So
they're wicked masks. Don Bluth masks.
The pumpkin one is awesome, and actually all 3 are awesome. I really like the skull one myself, but yeah, they're all really, really cool. And you got to wonder like if they ever remade this movie, what they could do with it too. So that's the other thing I kind of thought about. But yeah, I feel like that the villain too could have had a little bit more screen time. I wasn't totally sold on the fact that he's like this evil kind of this evil entity, I guess, or someone that's I just thought like they just needed some more screen time, and I don't know, the whole time I just wanted that guy to be Christopher Walken as well,
right?
So yeah, so I just felt that like that would just be amazing if Christopher Walken was behind these like creepy kids Halloween masks, right? So
one of the other small things, and I know this is just a minor thing, but how does time zone work with what he's trying to accomplish? Because literally you tune in at 9 p.m. to watch it. It's 6 p.m. on the East Coast. Are they waiting? And wouldn't they get word,
Well, right. Like, I mean, and also like how many masks are out there. And I mean, there's a cut of the film that like, it was not a cut of a cut in the film where it shows the kids in LA and they're like, it's already dark in LA. Right. So that would be even later. Like they would have already, anyway, it just, yeah, it's one of those things that doesn't quite match up. And again, I mean, had they focused it on a little bit smaller, even if they had done like Eastern Seaboard and gone and got some shots in New York or whatever, I think it would have played a little bit better. The song is hilariously catchy and annoying, which is what it was supposed to be. So kudos to whoever came up with that too.
It was actually Tommy Lee Wallace does the voiceover in it.
Yes, right. He does. Yeah, that's right.
The Silver Shamrock theme is played a total of 14 times in the movie. That's why it gets stuck in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, like it was definitely an interesting flick, and it was great to watch it for the first time and kind of see those influences, especially Carpenter's influences on the whole project. I think I've always said this about other films as well. I think that if you try and do something different, I think that's commendable. You deserve a little bit of extra credit for trying something new, and that's what they were trying to do here. And I think that's doesn't quite work, but I feel like it's still a good entry into the series as far as like an 80s film. I just wish it was called something. I wish it was its own separate thing, because I kind of want to see a sequel to this flick. Like there's some great gore pieces, some great practical effects. I kind of want to see like the aftermath of this, like what happened to the US or the world after this this horrific thing took place, right?
Or did it happen? And that's the thing that I love, but it's got the John Carpenter ending.
Yeah.
Him screaming at the end. We don't know if it was successful. We don't know if he failed. We don't know. And I love that about John Carpenter.
Yeah, and it's very serial-esque. Like, yeah, I mean, like feels like the Twilight Zone, and feels like those earlier sort of like entries into of episodic television that was dealing with supernatural stuff and whatnot, and like you left the audience kind of on the edge of their seat at the end, and they could fill in the gaps as to what they thought would happen, and I like those endings too. Like, I mean, I think it doesn't tell you too much, but like I said, I do want to see. I mean, if this was called something else, like maybe there's an opportunity for a sequel there to build on what they've created with this film, right?
Well, a little trivia bit. The movie constantly tells kids to tune in Halloween at 9 p.m., right?
Mm-hmm.
The really cool thing, in 1982 on NBC at 9 p.m., they screened Halloween.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yep. So it was like a built-in commercial for their own movie.
Yeah. Funny how that works, eh?
Right? But yeah, I love now how it's starting to get some love, and you're seeing it like even in the Blumhouse movies. The Halloween Kills, they had that homage to them where the people were in the park.
Yeah. And I think are they in the first movie too? I thought I read something that there's a tiny mention of them, or a tiny scene, but I could be wrong on that. We'll have to keep an eye out for when we get to the Blumhouse trilogy.
Yeah, I have to do that.
Because I remember them in Halloween Kills, because they're on the roundabout.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Well, stay tuned, because I'm going to talk to Benner about the original director that was selected for Halloween 3.
Okay. News to me.
Right? See what he thinks the movie would have looked like. We'll be back.